Hey everyone, it's good to be back. It's good to be talking about FPL again. And I can already see a few of you in the chat. Make sure if you're in the chat, you're chatting because this is an interactive stream. I need to hear your opinions. I've got my own, obviously, but some massive changes to FPL in the last 24 hours. I wouldn't go as far as to say they changed the game completely. I wouldn't say the changes flip it all on its head, but they're pretty big. I don't think we've ever seen double chips throughout the season before. We've definitely not seen defensive contributions before. So before we get started, leave a comment in the chat as soon as you can. What do you think? Are you happy with these changes? Are you happier with the double chips or with the defensive contributions? Let me know in the chat. Like I said, this is meant to be interactive. I want to hear your thoughts on it. I can see a few of you already. But also, how good is it to be back talking about FPL yet again? I've made a few videos this season, but I kind of jumped the gun early. I thought it would be released last week or earlier this week, and it's still not been released. We still haven't even got prices yet. But I guess with the announcement today, it kind of makes sense why we don't have prices, because if Tarkowski came in at 5.5 million, no one would have bought him unless the defensive contributions came in as well. So it'll be interesting to see when they announce the prices. I reckon this weekend might start drip feeding them a little bit, and then maybe a release on Monday, Tuesday. But either way, it can't be far off now. And another, well, not announcement, but another small thing to note, any of you watching today, this will not be my only live stream this year. Alex Volo, who's done a fantastic job of my thumbnails this year, created me a custom one, especially for live streaming, and I intend to use it quite a lot this year. I'm looking at doing either a Thursday or a Friday night live stream. I don't want to compete with the deadline streamers because I'm just not going to get the views. But if I do it on a Thursday or a Friday night, the night before the deadline, we can kick back, we can have a chat with each other, a bit of a community feel, and discuss what we want to do with our FPL sides. So if you're up for that, let me know. But I've got the thumbnail ready, and I'm going to probably drink a beer on a Thursday or a Friday night with you guys, chat through my decisions, chat through some of yours as well, and hopefully it can be a lot of fun throughout the season. In the meantime, though, shall we get cracking and talking about these changes? So first up, we have double chips. I asked for your comments in the chat. I haven't actually read them yet, so I'll go through a couple of them now. But I think the general thoughts on the chips being doubled up are pretty mixed. I think there's much more of a positive reaction to the defensive contributions. My initial reaction on the defensive contributions was very positive as well. I made a video on it earlier today. Double chips, I haven't had the chance to make a full video, so I thought I'd just live stream it with you guys. But I've seen a lot of mixed reactions. A few people seem to be thinking that maybe it leads to a more template version of FPL, even in the first half of the season, because there will undoubtedly be favoured opportunities to use some of these chips. Bench boost game week 1, for example, I've seen so many people talking about it already. That's going to be hugely popular. I'm not completely sold on it yet, I must say, but we've got FPL team in the background now that I'll jump across to in a bit, and we can analyse some of those different combinations of chips together. My general thoughts on the double chips are, it's good for engagement, right? It's good for new players to the game. It's good for the players that might usually spend their chips in the first 5 or 6 game weeks and then get a bit bored and log off. So FPL have done a good thing for building the player base and making sure that people stay engaged for longer. But if you're watching this stream, you're probably going to be engaged for the majority of the FPL season regardless. I mean, let's face it, FPL hasn't launched and you're already watching a live stream, so you've got to be fairly into it at least. So I doubt engagement's really a problem for you. And from my point of view, I think it creates more variance. It creates more opportunities for going on the attack in the first half of the season. I tend to play fairly conservatively for the first, 19, 20 game weeks until we get double game week news. I think with the double chips, what it does is it gives us an opportunity to maybe think outside the box and look at some different combinations. There will be a preferred strategy. I think bench boost 1, wildcard 2 or 3 is going to be popular. People have always talked about bench boosting in game week 1. I think they're actually going to finally do it en masse this year. And I will look into it. We can have a try at a draft in a moment's time with FPL team if you guys fancy it. But I think it's it's interesting to think about FPL in a different way, where in the first half of the season, rather than just try and map out for a 19 game week stretch, figure out where you're wildcarding and jobs are good in, this year you have to have a little bit more fun with it. You've got to go on the attack. You've got to figure out, okay, in that first 19 game weeks, where am I going to see a free hit being most useful? Where am I going to see a triple captain be most useful? And I've got a few combinations that we can talk about in a bit. Let's go into the chat. And I do apologize in advance. I haven't done a lot of live streams. I've done a few here and there, but I'm pretty bad at reading the live stream chat. So I apologize if it takes a while for me to get used to the rhythm of going back and forth in the chat. The pros like Raptor, Harry, Let's Talk, all of these guys, they're just looking back and forth constantly. They're really good at it. I'm absolutely horrendous. So I'm going to try my best, but I am sorry if I'm a bit slow on it. To start off with, a few people in the chat already. Dan, I obviously talked to you on X a minute ago. Great to see you in here. Claire as well. Fantastic to see you. SA, who currently has my #1 fan badge, which I haven't allocated. It's just you're commenting a lot. That's great. Number 3 goes to IM 1974 as well. So yeah, great to see you guys in the chat. Sam Carr's in as well. Fantastic to see you all. I think a lot of people in the chat are also saying that the chips maybe not a massive fan of. Dan has said not a massive fan of the extra chips. Feels like it adds a lot of extra variance and swings. It will be good for the casuals, of course. So I completely agree, to be fair. I think what the chips do is it keeps the casuals engaged. It will add a complexity to our lives as content creators, as FPL managers, trying to figure out the best path. But when there aren't double game weeks, I think the thing I'm excited by for the double chips in the first half of the season, and the fact you have to use them in the first half of the season, is it's unlikely there will be any double game weeks or blank game weeks. So there's less variance depending on which week you use them in. So let's say triple captain as an example. I'll go across to, let's go across to FPL team. And again, apologies for any technical difficulties. This is my first one of the year. But I've got some of the fixtures up here. The triple captaincy as a starting point, because that's the most obvious and easy chip to kind of analyze where you're going to use it. Obviously, you're going to look at Arsenal, you're going to look at Chelsea, you're going to look at Man City, Liverpool, maybe Man United, maybe Spurs, but probably one of those first 4 teams. So Arsenal, you've got game week 2 against Leeds, you've got Burnley, Sunderland in 10 and 11, Bukayo Saka, Gyökeres, if he signs as well, going to be really interesting. Chelsea, obviously, you've got Sunderland game week 9, Burnley game week 12, and I think it's Leeds away game week 14, if my notes are correct. They are, thank you. Although that's weird that it's not green. I would imagined it would have been green and stood out a little bit more. But Parma's going to be interesting again. Liverpool, you've got Burnley first up in game week 4. That's probably the first really solid opportunity for triple captain. And then later on, Sunderland, I think it's game week 14. Yeah, and game week 15 against Leeds. Man City, again, Erling Haaland, going to be popular. Burnley game week 6. Leeds game week 13. Sunderland game week 15. So you got plenty of opportunities for triple captain, and because we're not going to worry about double game weeks, you could punt it on a player that might not be the highest expected points. So let's say, for example, you're a bit brave and go Saka in game week 2 against Leeds. Maybe you expect him to get a little something, but he probably won't be the favourite in terms of expected points across the first 19 game weeks. But he might only be a point or 2 off of it. So Salah, for instance, I haven't actually looked at any data yet, but I would imagine Burnley game week 4, probably Sunderland game week 14. Those are going to be like the highest expected points you can get from any player individually in the first half of the season. But he won't be miles ahead of some of the other players. So triple captain you can have a bit of fun with, because even if you're willing to sacrifice some expected points, you're probably not going to be too far off, and variance could play in your favour. Bench boost is probably the one that is, I would say, the most interesting, mainly because a lot of people are going to use it game week 1, and then by doing so, they kind of lock themselves into an early wild card. You might be able to find a way of bench boosting and then not wild carding, but just looking at the fixtures on screen, I think bench boosting game week 1 doesn't really lend itself to holding that team for too long. And also, let's remember what bench boost is usually like. After a bench boost, you're usually stuck with 3 or 4 players on your bench who are worth a bit more money than you'd normally be willing to spend on your bench players. And it comes to the detriment of the rest of your 11. So it makes it a little bit trickier to navigate everything else for the foreseeable until you wildcard out of it. So a lot of people will look at bench boost in game week 1, and you can look at Leeds at home, even against Everton. You've got Spurs at home against Burnley, Sunderland against West Ham at home. Obviously, West Ham, the reverse fixture against Sunderland away, probably more appealing. But the reason I don't instinctively like bench boost game week 1 is because Leeds are going up against a fairly well-matched Everton side. Everton aren't going to be pushovers. They don't score a lot of goals, but the benefit of the bench boost is usually the 2 defenders that you'd otherwise bench, 1 midfielder or striker, and a goalkeeper. So you're mainly relying on defensive points. So that's why I'm more worried about whether or not the teams who are cheaper in my 15 that are going to like round off my 15, whether or not they've got a good chance of keeping a clean sheet that week. It's not the be all and end all. There are other factors. And of course, with the defensive contributions we'll talk about in a bit, that obviously changes things slightly. But realistically, on your bench, you're probably going to be looking at your Leeds 4.5 million defenders, Sunderland, Spurs, maybe Porro comes in at 5 if you're lucky, Romero maybe, but West Ham as well, away at Sunderland, you're hoping for a clean sheet. Away at the first home game Sunderland have had for, is it like 7, 8 years in the Premier League? That might be wrong, please. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But it will be for quite a while. So they're going to be bang up for that. I wouldn't be banking on a clean sheet, and therefore game week 1 bench boost, it might not be too bad because it gets you out of having to use a bench boost at another point, but it also kind of locks you into a wild card early. And looking at the fixtures, I don't think it's ideally set up for a bench boost. So let's have a look at the chat again, because again, I realise I've already kind of gone on a bit of a monologue and not really doing the interactive thing. I do apologise. So yeah, Kieran's in the chat, Discomfort, great to see you as well. Yeah, chips have variety. A lot of people saying, or Claire said, bench boost 1 looked good to begin with. Salah, you mean Verts? Yeah, you could triple captain Verts as well. Honestly, let me know what you think of Verts for FPL this season. I think he's going to be box office. More as a player than an FPL asset, it must be said. I think without penalties, it brings down his appeal ever so slightly from what he did at Leverkusen. But still, I think it's going to be an upgrade on, well, he'll come in as a midfielder. And the way I've got him in my head is like a McAllister or a Szoboszlai plus in terms of FPL returns as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in the Prem. I will probably wait to get to him after game week 2 and 3 are out the way, for instance. But not a bad shout at all. I do like the look of him. And let's be honest, we're doing this before prices as well. If he comes in as an 8 million midfielder, everyone's going to own him. He needs to be priced competitively. So yeah, I can't wait to get going either. Dan's in the chat, Gas. So 2 Dans in the chat, another Sam in the chat. So many opportunities. Let's actually, I've made a few notes on this. So in terms of bench boost, I think the standout one is game week 1 because then you can wildcard out of it. But I'd be interested to know, has anyone had a look at any other game weeks that they think a bench boost might be viable in so far? I think free hit, it's not obvious, but I've got a few more options that I like the look of. I like game week 11 because it avoids Liverpool versus Man City. If you're loaded up on Liverpool and City, and as you can see on the spreadsheet here, it's not obviously not bad fixtures either side, but not ideal. So you might not be loaded up on them. But if you can avoid that, then great. You might want to pile into Arsenal that game week against Sunderland. You might want to pile into Nottingham Forest and West Ham, both at home against promoted sides. Maybe even Newcastle away at Brentford. You've also got game week 3, where you could free hit. Arsenal have got Liverpool, so obviously 2 big hitters going against each other. And the reason I quite like free hit for game week 3 is it might provide you with an opportunity of bench boosting game week 1 and sailing through to about game week 5 or 6 before needing to wildcard. It's not ideal, but if you wanted to hold Arsenal players for a little bit and avoid the very worst fixture, Liverpool, then you might be able to hold on to a couple of them, maybe bench one of them against Man City, for instance. And then as a patch of 5 or 6, it doesn't look so bad. Bench boost in game week 1, wildcarding out in game week 6. And it kind of shapes a strategy a little bit. Free hit, obviously, game week 3, and then you can triple captain maybe somewhere around game week 13, 14, 15 when a few of the teams play promoted clubs. You've also got game weeks 5, 15, and game weeks, I should have done that in order, game week 5, game week 6, and game week 15. So game week 5 is perfect if you want to hold on to your Man City assets. You've got game week 15 as well for a great fixture swing, or sorry, a great set of fixtures even. So there's a lot of different opportunities for free hit. I think bench boost is much more difficult to get right, but the bench boost and the wild card, well, traditionally in the second half of the season, they tend to go together pretty well. So I'd also look at it in that way for the first half of the season, if possible. Bench boosting traditionally limits you because you have to spread the funds. So you either want to bench boost out, like bench boost and then wildcard out of it, or wildcard into the perfect bench boost the following week. But then that can give you a little bit of a struggle until you can sort of divest the funds a little bit over 3 or 4 game weeks. So I don't think that's ideal. I haven't found a patch of fixtures I love yet for a bench boost later on, but something is telling me that bench boost game week 1 just isn't the play. And I'd be interested to know what you guys think in the chat as well. So on that, wildcard, I think there are a few different options. You can look at wildcard 2 after a bench boost. You can look at 6 or 7. The reason you might look at 6 or 7 is because of the Arsenal, Chelsea to City, Liverpool swings. So Arsenal come out of a bad set of fixtures in game week 7. Chelsea are similar. I think they come a game week later in game week 8. But then you've got Liverpool and Man City who, okay, they're not bad fixtures. They're never bad fixtures for a club like Man City or Liverpool, but they do toughen a little bit around about game week 6 or game week 7. So you might want a wild card to kind of shift from one set of teams to the other. You've also got game week 17 late. The reason I mention that here is because Salah and a lot of the African players will go off to the African Cup of Nations in game week 17. So that might be an opportunity if you're able to hold your wild card and you might have a few more African players in your side, especially Salah, of course, then maybe game week 17 is a good opportunity if you can hold on to it late. And also by that point, we've got a great set of data. We might have maybe a little bit more information about doubles or what we might want to be doing with the second half of our season. And saving it that late might set you up really well for that second half of the season. And it's almost more powerful by that point because you've got more money in the bank as well. So just a thought, if you can be that patient, I doubt I will be, I rarely am. I think game week 6 or 7 is probably the most likely time, just having looked at it for 10 minutes. But that's not the only time. So again, let me know what your preferred, that's a terrible question to ask. The game's not even launched yet. No one's got a preferred strategy, but if you've got any early ideas, I'm all ears in the chat. So we've talked about chips for a little bit. Let me know, generally, are you happy with the double chips? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a kind of a bit of a cop-out? And also, actually, I completely forgot. I was going to ask, do you think the assistant manager being taken out of the game is a good thing? I think it probably is, because it added quite a lot of complexity. And again, if they're trying to bring players into the game, I think it was maybe a little bit too complex. I think they could have simplified it a little bit and maybe done it for 1 game week, but it might not have been the best thing we've ever seen. So double chips for now. I think it's all right, but I'm not in love with it. I'm much more happy with the idea of adding 2 points for a defensive contribution, for example. So yeah, in the chat, let me know what you're thinking. Wildcard 12, bench boost 13, Sam Carr's mentioned. I quite like that. Yeah, there are a ton of Sams in this chat. Do I only bring Sams into this stream? That is kind of mad. We're gonna have to have some sort of code. I can just be pricey. It's fine. Actually, to be fair, a lot of you probably don't even know my first name. It is Sam. So there is that. So yeah, if you can hold the wild card, fantastic. Planning is always so funny in FPL to me because I make these really crazy elaborate plans for about a month before the game launches. And after about 3 or 4 game weeks, you get punched in the nose by FPL. There's a player that was previously nailed that is just no longer a part of it. And you just have to look at getting rid and wildcarding pretty early. So I'm open to the idea of wildcarding early. I think with bench boost 1, wildcard 2, The other reason I don't like it is because it does sacrifice a really powerful chip, your wildcard, very early on. And if that's the case, you've got no get out of jail free card between then and the second half of the season, by which point you might be desperate to wildcard and therefore burn your second wildcard to get out of another mess. Game week 2, I think it's unlikely we know everything we need to know to wildcard with a full set of data. And therefore, I'm always fairly resistant to wildcard that early. I'm okay by about game week 5 or 6 because you know which players are starting, trends are starting to form, although it's still early doors, so I prefer to wait. But I think by about game week 5 or 6, it's much more comfortable wildcarding. But yeah, again, so many people were burnt early last season by early picks, Barco and Kunku. Who else did I have? Oh, I had Minte and Armstrong as well. Okay, stop looking at me for FPL advice because clearly I was doing something terrible last season. I'm not sure what happened there. Anyway, moving on very swiftly. I think we've kind of talked about double chips a little bit. I'd be interested to know whether you think it makes FPL more template or possibly less template. I've seen a lot of people arguing pretty strongly for more template, but in a weird way, I think because it's not during double game week season, the more I think about it, the more variety there's going to be with the chips. I think when you're talking about chips traditionally, it's because people are planning it around double game weeks, and therefore it becomes fairly obvious, oh, I'm going to triple captain when Salah's got the double of Burnley and Everton, and then I'm going to wildcard into a bench boost in game week 28 to 29, then I'm going to free hit in the blank game week of game week 30. None of that's going to matter until we get to the second half of the season anyway. So it might make the second half even more template because nobody's going to have used any of those chips, so we're all going to be in the same boat, clean slate game week 19. But for the first half of the season, I think there's going to be more variety perhaps because, like I said, with triple captain, you've got several decent options. One might be slightly ahead, but not enough that it becomes obvious. And bench boost, I don't think there's a real winner outside of game week 1, but game week 1 comes with its own negatives. Wildcard, I don't think there's an obvious time to do it. There might be 1 or 2 windows with a decent swing, like game week 7, as I mentioned, but I wouldn't say it's massively obvious considering none of the best teams are ever going into bad fixtures because they are the hard fixture. So yeah, I think it's maybe net positive, but it also adds a lot more variance to the game. So I'm going to have to think about it a bit more before I completely decide that I'm happy with it. Not that it really matters. Everyone's got their own view. It doesn't matter what I think in the grand scheme of things, but I'm open to it. And also, as a content creator, it gives me some more exciting videos to make. I can make more free hit videos. I can talk about what a bench boost one side might look like. I'll definitely be making a video on that. And then what a wildcard game week 2 or game week 3 side might look like as well. Definitely going to be making a lot more videos on that. So I'm excited. I might need to quit my day job to make enough time to make all these videos. But I'm not going to do that. If anyone I'm employed by is thinking I'm going to do that, I'm not. Don't worry. It's fine. But it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And what it will bring is the casuals into the game a little bit more. You're going to have a lot more people engaged in the game for a lot longer. It'll make it more difficult for us. But that's half the fun of the game, right? You don't want it to be easy. You want to have a competition. You want to be competitive. So hopefully it makes it all more competitive. Anyway, I think we've talked about the chips for long enough. If anyone's got any other points on chips, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll try and get back to you as quickly as possible. Let's have a look through some of these slides because I've done quite a lot of slides. I've taken the slides from my earlier video as well. So I think we'll start talking about the defensive actions because that's another major difference to FPL this year. I've got all the data as well. Tom from Who Got the Assist, my podcast partner, do go check out Who Got the Assist if you haven't heard of it, by the way, has crunched all the numbers. He did it in like half an hour as well. I'm not sure how he managed to do it, but he crunched all the numbers and immediately sent it all over to me. I made it look a little bit more pretty with the graphics, and then I pumped out a video within like an hour. So I'm hoping all the data's correct. I back him to be correct. But what is really interesting is like the connotations of what the 2 extra points means. And a lot of people have been saying that it doesn't really matter. And I would contest that. I think it matters massively, but it will be a slow burn. Now, obviously, you're capped at 2 extra points per game for any defensive action. So you need 10 extra defensive actions, clearances, blocks, interceptions, tackles. CBIT is going to become a bit of a phrase in the FPL lingo this year, I think. So you need 10 of those in a match to score 2 extra FPL points if you're a defender. And if you're a midfielder, you add in recoveries and you have to get an extra 2 of those per game. So you need C, B, I, T, and R as a midfielder. You can get up to 12 to get 2 extra points, but you can't get any more than that. So I kind of talked about the rules and everything earlier on, but what I want to talk about in this video is having a look more at the people who are going to benefit from it and how much of a difference it's actually going to make. So thanks to Fantasy Premier League have actually ran the numbers. I've ran a few of my own as well, but I'm not quite ready to add it into videos because it's not pretty yet. So I thought I'd just use their graphics for now. Defensive contribution points from midfielders, Caicedo's the main beneficiary of it. 42 extra points. He wasn't a factor last season, but a lot of these players who weren't factors last season will probably become more interesting this season. But if you look at the overall points, 140 for Caicedo, 143 for Anderson. Beyond that, Norgard got 141, but he's at Arsenal now. He won't get the minutes. Outside of that, you're looking at 120-ish points as a maximum, even with these points added in. So I don't think it's going to be a game breaker in the sense that a new set of players are going to become the elite premium picks. What it's going to do is level out the playing field of the 4.5s, or what was previously a 4.5, to now the 6 to 6.5 million midfielders. So Caicedo, for instance, would have scored 140 points last year had these been implemented. That would bring him in line with a lot of the 5.5, 6, even maybe up to 7 million midfielders in some cases. So if he comes into the game at 5 or 5.5, he's going to be pretty interesting. Anderson, perhaps even more interesting, although he doesn't get as many defensive contribution points. He does actually get some goals and some assists, and the underlying data is not awful like it is with Caicedo, because he also does get forward. So a player like him, who's more of a box-to-box midfielder, is not only going to benefit from the defensive contributions, but he's got enough points in the first place that he probably becomes a little bit more of a factor in FPL terms. Now, they've ran, is at the top 8 there, but just outside of the top 8, that won't come in here. I've calculated it as 27 extra points. Bruno Fernandes would have jumped from, I think it was 174 points to a 200 pointer, so a 200 club member last season, had the defensive contributions been in place. So again, I'm not confident enough to show you my workings out on that just yet, but I ran the numbers. I'm probably going to make a separate video on it when I'm confident, but he would have gotten a significant jump based on his defensive actions, and he would have got an extra 27 points, which is, okay, not quite a point a game, but it's significant, and it's significant enough to make him a much better FPL asset. The likes of Rodri, Rice as well from seasons past. So if we go, I've got it somewhere. Here we go. So last 5 seasons, Rice and Rodri have led the league in terms of defensive contributions. That's CBITR. And their CBITR per game is also way above 12. So they're averaging 1 a game quite comfortably, or I guess 2 extra points a game quite comfortably if they're getting 90 minutes. Obviously, they're not distributed evenly, so there will be games where they get 20 of these, and therefore other games where they don't get any. So it won't be an even thing. They won't get 2 extra points per game. But a player like Rodri, who was out last season, is probably going to rank very highly on the defensive contributions. And if he comes into the game at 6, even 6.5 million, considering he also gets some attacking returns, I think that could be really, really interesting. So Rodri, Rice, a few of these players are no longer in the league, but Tielemans, Guimaraes as well, are down at the bottom there, but still in the top 10, all averaging over 12 per game, which is the minimum you need to get the extra 2 points. So Guimaraes gets some attacking returns, Tielemans gets some attacking returns, Rodri, Rice, they could be really interesting options. So not just over the last 5 seasons, but last season as well. You've got Gravenberch in there, who was very close to Caicedo at number 1. You've got McAllister, which I think is really interesting because he was high on the ball recoveries. Okay, he's not quite up there with the likes of Caicedo as a defensive midfielder, but an 8 for Liverpool, if he keeps getting good minutes, and he was absolutely fantastic last season, no reason why he shouldn't, then I see no reason why he can't be an FPL option at something like 7 million. Let's imagine, okay, he's got CBITR of 405. So if he played 38 games a season, that is about 10 points, just over 10 CBITR points a game. So he's not far off of getting those 2 extra points on average per game. So he might bump by 15, 20 points as well. And if a player like McAllister can bump by that much, he's good enough on the attacking returns and plays in a good enough team that he actually probably becomes FPL relevant as well. Same goes for Guimaraes. Gravenberch maybe less so because he doesn't get as many attacking returns, but Gomez could be a little bit more interesting. I'm really interested to see what they price Anderson at Nottingham Forest. If he's anywhere under 6 million, he could be really, really interesting with this kind of data. Looking at the defenders, Tarkowski is the poster boy, obviously. And FPL has kind of been bigging him up all day, but he's not the only player. So Murillo, you've also got Milenkovic as well. So I've got the spreadsheets here, or the graphs that they sent here somewhere. There we go. So you've got defensive contributions for 24-25 for defenders. Tarkowski comes out atop of in terms of who benefited the most, but in terms of the overall defender standings, what it actually means for the best defenders to own is that if you've got a centre-back in particular who's already in the team keeping lots of clean sheets, but also not bad for goals or assists, then you're winning. So Milenkovic comes out on top of the new rankings, 171 points. That's massive for a defender, especially considering he started at 4.5 million. Same for Murillo, who came, I think, joint third for the most extra points they would have received, but 168 overall proves that it wasn't just all about the extra points, it was also the fact he was in a good defense in the first place. So what will be really interesting this season is which defense is solid enough that they keep regular clean sheets, but also not fancied enough that maybe they're priced out of it. So a Gvardiol, a Van Dijk, obviously ranking really high here in terms of points and benefiting from the defensive contributions, but they're probably going to be priced at 6.5 million, maybe even 7, considering the extra points for defenders. So they're not going to be as easy to incorporate. But if you can find yourself a Lacroix, a Tarkowski, a Milenkovic at 5 million, 4.5 million, and they keep clean sheets regularly, then they are going to be gold dust. So I'll be interested to know who you think is maybe going to benefit the most from this season. I think they'll price in the defenders from last season. So Milenkovic, Murillo, Tarkowski probably as well. Interested to know what you guys think the prices of those defenders will be. But I would imagine they come in at something like 5.5 million, maybe 5 if you're really, really lucky. There were one or two defenders rather, who would have benefited as fullbacks, and that was like Neco Williams. I think Ryan Sessegnon was in there. Daniel Munoz got 14 extra points on the spreadsheet here. So it's not all about the centre-backs, but the centre-backs are going to become much more popular than they've ever been before. So it's a bit of a leveler, really. You've now got centre-backs as a factor in FPL much more than before, and they'll compete with the full-backs. I think they might have maybe slightly overpowered it in the sense that now looking at that right-hand column there, you've got Munoz and Alexander-Arnold as the only 2 true full-backs in the game who would have maybe competed with some of the best centre-backs. Gvardiol, maybe you give a little sneaky mention to because he also played left-back, but the majority goes to the centre-backs. So I wonder now if the template is going to form with a lot of centre-backs, not so many full-backs, even if they're priced decently. And I think they're going to have to price full-backs maybe a little bit down to make them interesting as options. I've just noticed as well, a couple of new people to the chat. Hello to Ross Raptor. Obviously, we all know who Ross is. Say hi to him in the chat. Great to see you here. And also, Surprised you've got time to see me. I'm sure you'll be creating a lot of your own content as well at the moment. It's been a chaotic day. Hopefully the move's gone well as well. Got a little sneak peek of your studio the other day as we were doing pre-season content, of course, for who got the assist. So tune in for that very, very soon. Objectives, Matt's in the chat as well. He's already in. Actually, that's a great time to shout this out. I'm doing club this year, which is another fantasy game that I'm really enjoying. I was playing it last year. I'm playing it so much that they reached out to me and offered me a code for sign up. It's in the chat below. It's a completely free game. It's a lot like FPL, but with extra sort of points scoring. So it's actually quite similar to the defensive contributions that have been added to FPL. Completely free. I've got a mini league that I think I've also put a link to in the description. Like I said, it's just another fantasy game to play, right? I enjoyed it a lot last season. It's a bit like, don't know if any of you OGs might have played Goal United back in the day, Football Manager, that kind of thing. It's got a little bit more complexity. You kind of build your stadium, you build your club, and you pack players rather than just select them. So you can't just select Salah and select Haaland. You've kind of got to unlock them throughout the game, which is quite good fun. Anyway, stop talking about club because this is an FPL stream. But if you fancy playing against me in the mini league and taking me on, do let me know. And also just join my mini league in the comments below as well once you've signed up using the link too. Like I said, completely free. Raptor Ross has also got a mini league as well. I'm sure he'll shout that out. But it's a great game. I absolutely love it. And yeah, shout out to Ross, shout out to Therapy too. Any other questions in the chat? Feel free to send them in, by the way. Do you like the defensive contributions? I'm actually a massive fan of it. I think it's a really good addition to the game. I think it kind of levels the playing field, adds that. I think if some people were concerned about the chips being doubled, then this kind of levels it back out in terms of the amount of complexity in the game and how much it benefits the casual. So the chips being doubled might benefit the casual a little bit, whereas I think the defensive contributions adds that level of complexity to bring it back to the people who want to spend a bit more time looking at the data. And I think the models are going to take a little while to catch up with it. I think everyone's going to be questioning who the new meta will be. And I think it's going to add a lot more excitement to the opening few game weeks. And hey, I mean, we haven't launched FPL yet either. So maybe there's some other stuff coming that we haven't heard about yet. I think the main difference will be the pricing. I would imagine that the defenders and the defensive midfielders are now priced accordingly with the defensive contributions, but I still think that adds a new roster, a new selection of players that we can maybe pick from that might be FPL relevant. So I'm all for it until I'm ranked 4 million after 8 or 9 game weeks. Then I'm going to hate it, and I'll blame the new changes, obviously. But for the time being, I kind of like it. I think it's an interesting addition. It's something that a lot of managers have been screaming out for a while. There will always be people who don't like it, and to be fair, I'm more than willing to listen to that opinion as well, because it's been out for a day. So I'd like to know what maybe some of the drawbacks might be on that as well. So if you've got any maybe hesitations on it, let me know in the comments as well, and we can chat them through. But for now, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's generally net positive. What I'll do now as well, whilst I take a sip, because I haven't had a drink in ages, is move over to the FPL team as well, as I shouted out earlier. Do go check out FPL team, by the way. I think I've linked it in the chat, but if not, or in the description, but if not, completely free. I don't have ads because I paid to remove ads specifically for this stream, because I know how annoying it can be if ads are popping up on a live stream. So I've removed those for like $2.50 a month, which I thought was pretty cheap, and you get all sorts of other stuff. Not sponsored whatsoever. I just really like Peter. I like the tool, and considering FPL is not live yet, it's the only way that I can find of building a draft. So I'll put this over here, and we can start maybe building a quick draft. So I think straight away Salah is a pretty obvious include. After that, though, it's pretty much all over the shop. I think Pickford, again, is going to be interesting always. I think now someone like a Konza is going to be much more interesting because he'll benefit from the new defensive contributions. Villa have a decent set of fixtures for the first 7 or 8 game weeks. got Tarkowski maybe as well. I mean, doubling up on Everton defence might be brave, but again, we know how much he'll benefit, and I'd say 6 out of the first 7 are looking pretty decent. You've also got someone like Lacroix as well. I may be leaning far too much into the defensive contributions here, but Palace, okay, not the best start, but probably not too terrible. You've got a good couple of fixtures in there as well. Let me know in the chat, by the way, anyone that you want to include in a game week 1 draft at the moment. I think prior to today, Palmer was going to be really interesting. You could look at a Caicedo now, maybe Rodri as well. I mean, the prices here are not going to be how it's going to be priced on the day, because at the end of the day, none of us knew that this defensive contribution thing was coming. So Lacroix at 4.5, Konza at 4.5, Tarkowski at 4.5. I think we're probably living a bit of a dream there to assume that any of these defenders come in at 4.5 now. They'll probably come in at 5.5 million. So this will be wholly unaffordable. But there will still be options that will still be relevant even without the defensive contributions. So Bowen, I think I calculated as having like a point or two more, even with the defensive contributions. With the opening fixture and then that opening set all the way down to game week 7, and if you can avoid game week 7, you can probably run him through to game week 11. So free hit game week 7 maybe. You can run him through and you've got a great set of fixtures for Bowen there at 8 million. I think that's a decent option. You've also got players, I've already picked Rodri. You can look at Van Dijk in the chat. Murillo, great shout, Tom. I'm going to throw Murillo in there now. I mean, this is very unbalanced because I'm just throwing in all the players I like at the moment, but we can finesse it in a little bit. I think initially I had Watkins. I do quite like Watkins. The reason being, they don't really have another striker at the moment. So, I mean, it's a decent set of opening fixtures, like I said. If they've got no alternative, then he should get good minutes. The other thing that I should mention on strikers is we don't expect any of them to benefit from the defensive contributions whatsoever. I think maybe if you're lucky, like one of them gets a point at some point, but we're realistically not really going to get anything from it. Solanke, maybe. I quite like Solanke. I don't think... Well, actually saying that, the new defensive contributions don't directly affect forwards or the premium midfielders all that much, but maybe indirectly they might. And I haven't done the digging into this, but maybe there's an argument to have slightly cheaper forwards so you can spend more money to get the benefit out of the defensive contributions in the defense, in the midfield as well. I haven't run the numbers on it yet, and it'll be interesting to see how it affects it, but I wonder if there's an argument to now throw a little bit more money into the defense and take a bit of money out of the attack, because now there's more ways or more routes to points in the defense. Now that's not saying that forwards are going to be irrelevant, because of course they will be, and the bonus points suggested last season that they were much more relevant than ever before. But maybe it does level it out a little bit, where you can look at a different strategy, maybe a defender heavy strategy, where okay, you get a few more points from the defenders, maybe you expect a goal less here or there from the forwards. Another forward I really like the look of is Evan Nilsson. The reason I like Evan Nilsson is because I expect him to be priced around 6.5 million. Okay, yes, game week 1, not great. After that, it's not a bad set all the way through to game week 9. And when you want to, you can hop across to maybe a Strand Larsen, who I expect to be the same, if not cheaper. And around game week 5 or game week 8 even, you could hop across and you've got yourself, well, 3 promoted clubs in 5 game weeks there, from 5 to 9. And he should be on penalties. He should be getting great minutes without Cunha in the side. So I quite like that. Apologies earlier for Sam from the lane. It meant Van der Ven, not Van Dijk. Fair enough. Apologies. We've got Porro in there already. So one of the two. Yeah, I like Van der Ven. If he can stay fit, actually, Van der Ven on the defensive contributions should be pretty good. One stream that I'm going to go tune in after this to is Above Average, who I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of. They do a great analysis of defenders, of centre-backs in particular, of dogs versus cats. One of them is more... let's say within themselves, they're not as aggressive as defenders. They'll maybe stay a little bit more they'll stay back and maybe not go for the tackle so much. They'll be much more of a shield, whereas the other one will be more of like a dog with a bone. They'll be running after everything, getting in the tackles, getting in the blocks, getting in the clearances, and much more active. And we saw that with the difference between Murillo and Milenkovic last season in terms of the defensive contributions. Murillo got a lot more defensive contribution points than Milenkovic would have because of the different style of centre-backs they are. And I wonder what the difference between a Van der Ven and a Romero is, if Romero even stays, by the way, and which one attacks the ball more. Yeah, Sam Carr mentioned Romero dog, Van der Ven cat. So Romero, if he's going after everything, then he might benefit more from the extra points. Van der Ven, I'm sure, will still get extra points. He'll still get 10 to 20 extra points, but maybe not quite as many as Romero. That's all saying that, or assuming that they'll both be fit for the season, which is rarely the case, or was rarely the case under Ange. Maybe Thomas Frank does it a little bit differently. Gabriel also benefited. The numbers I've ran privately suggest that Gabriel is going to be very interesting this season in terms of attacking the ball, getting those clearances, getting those blocks in. He ranks very highly, but just didn't get the benefit of it because he was out for a lot of the season, so a fair bit of the season, so he didn't rank that highly. But in terms of the percentage of defensive contributions, he was pretty high. So a player like him over the last 5 seasons has done pretty well, and I'd expect him, now he's back fit, I've already seen him in training, so he's going to be an option once more. Just to round off this side, because I realise I haven't actually done so Valdemarson can definitely come in here, and then you've got 7.5 million to spend on a final midfielder. So I think, okay, you probably only want to spend maybe 6 million on another midfielder. I actually really like Ndiaye, who is priced at 6.5 here. I think he might come in cheaper. Let's put in Anderson for now, just to be sneaky. I like Anderson because of the defensive contributions. And if he does come in at something like 5.5, I think that's a bit of a steal. I realise this is not going to be a perfect Game Week 1 draft. I've kind of been doing this on the fly whilst we've been chatting. But Rodri, Anderson as well, Murillo, Porro, Konza, Tarkowski, Lacroix are all going to benefit from the defensive contributions. I've definitely, given the recency of the news, just piled in on them here. So I will do another video with it with a much more measured approach, not just throwing in all of the best defensive contributors. But it's interesting what you can get to pretty easily with a lot of fairly cheap or historically cheap defenders that are now going to benefit. And you've still got 2 premiums in the midfield there. You've got a decent forward line with at least one fairly decently priced striker. I don't actually know what Watkins is priced at here, 8.5 million, and you've got 2 million in the bank in case some of these players come in a little bit more expensive. And a lot of depth here as well, by the way, because let's face it, Game Week 1, rarely do you have anything more than a 4.5 or a 5 million midfielder. So there's a lot going for a draft where you maybe lean into the defensive contributions, but I think realistically, because the game's not launched, we can't really look at a draft too closely because we don't know the prices at this point. It might completely ruin it for us and we can't do any of that. So switching back, I don't think I'm going to be streaming for too much longer, by the way. I'll mainly just be answering your questions now. I think we've kind of gone through anything. If we've got any major questions on how the chips are going to be used, I kind of just assumed knowledge to begin with, which is really silly of me. If anyone's got any questions on like having 2 chips or the defensive contributions and the way it works, do let me know in the chat. But I think by this point, there's been so many videos made on it. It's pretty well versed, and most people are going to know. So yeah, let me know in the chat if you've got any questions. I'm going to take a quick sip of my beer. Someone asked in the chat actually what beer I'm drinking. I'm drinking a Korev. I mean, the green screen's kind of ruining it here, but it's a Korev. And until recently, I'd only ever seen it once in my local pub. And now I'm starting to see it in cans in like Sainsbury's and supermarkets. So I needed to give it a go. This is the first time I'm trying it. I actually quite like it. So yeah, if Korev want to sponsor me, then fantastic. Love it. But yeah, I've rather enjoyed this. I think most people have had their questions answered. Do make sure. Oh my god, I can't believe this. I haven't even asked for a like or asked for a subscribe at all this stream. So if you're watching, I'm seeing 46 people in the chat right now. So if there are 46 people, if I could get 46 likes on the stream, that would be fantastic. If I could get a few more subscribers, that would also be great. I'm really hoping to get to 4,000 before the start of the season. I think I'm about 300 off, which would be a hell of a jump, but I'm hoping with the amount of content that I'm planning on making, I'm pretty much going to go daily between now and the start of the season once the game has launched after a little break this weekend. But I am going to try and really up my game with content this season. I'm doing is that right? 4 non-live stream videos per week and a live stream on a Thursday or a Friday, depending on when the deadline is. If the deadline's on a Saturday, I'll do a Friday night stream with, I've got some games that we're going to play. I might do some giveaways as well. We can chat through my team. We can chat through some of the biggest dilemmas each week, and we can have a look at some of the best captains as well and have a bit of fun as well, because like I said towards the start of the stream, there's a lot of deadline streams. I'm not realistically big enough to compete with them at the moment. I might get 2 or 3 viewers, but I'm not going to get many. On a Friday night, I think I always sit at home kind of combing through my FPL options anyway. So I kind of think, why don't I just do that with you lot? We'll do it on stream. We'll run through some options. We'll chat through some of the main dilemmas, the team news as well, the press conferences, play a few games, have a drink if you want it, and we can have a lot of fun. So that'll be a Friday night with a Saturday stream, or a Thursday night with a Friday night stream, if that makes sense. So I think that'll be good fun. Someone's mentioned less adverts and I'll subscribe. I did try and set it to the lowest possible amount of adverts. So apologies if you're getting a lot of adverts. I'll try and fix that for the next live stream. I'm pretty inept when it comes to live streaming so far. I will try and get better. So if there are lots of ads, let me know. I will try and get less of them. Few people saying Friday nights sound great. So yeah, all good for that. What I'm going to avoid is when there's a Friday deadline, I won't do a live stream. I'll do it the night before. So it'll be like a one night previous live stream. So I'll avoid the deadline streamers until maybe I get to like 100k or something, or 50k. For now, I will avoid them, and we'll have a lot of fun. We can have a bit of a relaxed atmosphere, less pressure on a deadline as well. We won't have to worry about, oh, we need to lock in our sides in 5 minutes. We can have a back and forth. We can have a lot of fun. I think it'll be good fun anyway. And even if it's just me chatting to myself, that's what I do on a Friday night anyway. So why not do it in front of a camera? Bit of fun anyway. So anyway, guys, I'm probably going to wrap it up here because I think we've probably answered most of the questions. I've got my thoughts out on the double chips. I've got my thoughts out on the defensive contributions. I've also made a video on the defensive contributions where I've ran through it maybe a little bit more in detail. So if I've rushed over anything here, do go check out that video. I posted it earlier today, so go check that out. And yeah, so a couple of questions in the chat about live at Fest. I think I'm going to Fest. I've not bought the ticket yet, but my plan is always to go to Fest. So I'll probably do the live stream the night before, go to Fest and chat it through with you guys on the day in person, because I always like being around the community on the day as well. I think it's good fun there, and I'll go to the meetup before as well. Anyway, right, I'm going to finish it here before I babble on. I've got to go make dinner for my fiance. I've got to drink the rest of this beer because I'm not drinking it at all on this live stream, and it's probably going to go warm. But anyway, it was great chatting to you all. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I look forward to making more FPL content, both non-live and live, and chatting to you in the comments over the rest of the season. And again, it's just so good to be talking FPL again after what felt like a lifetime without it. We're finally back. I imagine we'll get the launch of the game early next week, so we'll have more stuff to talk about then. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great weekend. Hope you all have enjoyed this stream, and I'll see you very, very soon on Monday, where hopefully we get the launch of FPL. But in the meantime, see you for now, and I'll speak to you